Hello, everyone. May I have your attention? I'm Dr. Lee. I know my class, you know me. I teach religious education, and I'm also learning support and EAL specialist as well. Hi, very nice to meet you. And a surprise, I'm a guest speaker today, and as you can see the photos here, yes, that's me. So I want to share my life story today. So how my religious faith, my beliefs, my worldviews influences the choices that I have made for my life. So, yes, as you can see, I used to be a Catholic nun, and in 2021, I was 2021 Miss Model Korea first runner-up. Anyway, so I will share my life story with you now. I had two childhood dreams. One was becoming a professor, and the other one is becoming a nun. I was Catholic from cradle. My parents are both Catholic, so I didn't have many options when I was younger in terms of faith. But it's very two different dreams. But at your age, I used to go to the convent for retreats for those young ladies who felt they had a calling for the religious life. I wanted to become a nun since I was middle school, but later, I'm going to talk about my mom because she plays a very significant role of my life change. But how could I describe my mom? I love my mom, don't get me wrong, but she's like a Korean tiger mom. And if you don't know what Korean tiger mom is, you're very blessed. But anyway, she was very against it. My parents were very against my religious dream. So they knew that I had ambition studying. So they told me, persuaded me out of pursuing religious life. And you know what, when you enter the convent, you got to obey the superiors. And what if they don't send you to the graduate school? I know that you want to become a doctor, maybe a PhD, and a professor one day, but why don't you just go ahead and pursue that dream first? And then after that, if you still want to become a nun, yes, you can pursue that dream. So in my teenage years, I was really pursued by that. So anyway, next. So I studied really hard, and at the age of 30, when I turned 30, I got my PhD degree, and also God has really blessed me with a college professor position. So I was the 30-year-old, very young college professor ever in Troy University history. So from 2010 to 2016, it was me at College of Education teaching students who aspire to become teachers. Oh, and I was very active. I was ambitious. I wanted to become the next vice chancellor of Troy University, and I was also they put me as a
Our Troy program is one of the largest in Troy University. So whether students take classes in Tennessee or in South Korea or Japan or Vietnam, there is no difference in quality.
Get your degree on your terms with eTroy online degree programs. Flexible, accredited, respected.
And to my surprise, when the colleges visit here, I saw Troy University. So I was so happy. Anyway, that's my picture with my colleagues and students. And another picture. We used to run a grant program like professional development, training for teachers on STEM program. All right, so. I was very happy. I was busy with teaching and researching. Within 3 years, I published 6 or 7 research papers. I was just so busy and active. I really enjoyed being a professor. But on the 3rd year of my professorship, I just felt that my religious calling it came back. I was driving to the college, to my office, and I just felt there's something missing in my life, and I didn't know what that was. But eventually, I realized that God was calling me again for the religious life. So, when I was not teaching or doing the research paper, writing the research paper, people always found me in a church volunteering work. So the picture there. But Father Gallagher, our parish priest, and that's a little girl. I was her godmother. That's her first communion, and also. I was a dancer too, so I performed traditional Korean fan dance, and today is the International Home Language Day, so I'm wearing hanbok. So, and little did I know at the time, later I showed a Korean traditional fan dance performance in Visitation Monastery for the nuns, and later I became one of them. And like altar serving, playing the piano. I always play the piano for the church. So Helen and piano, they were quite inseparable. And here's a little, so I used to play church organ too in the church. That's me playing the organ. It was very hard. Okay, and then next one. And this is video recorded by one of my church friends. She recorded me. So 20 minutes before a church mass, I used to play the piano so people can come and sit and meditate before mass starts. Okay, next. And also I used to make rosaries for people. And also I taught the convent how to make rosaries. They can, make their own and mend their rosaries. So, eventually I gave myself 3 years. I had 3 years of discernment because I became a professor and everything was going well. But then giving up my professor position and going into the convent, becoming a nun, that was a big transition. So my yes to God's calling to the religious life, it called significant changes. That meant giving up my tenure. And from day one of my professor, position, my professorship, I got myself ready for the tenure. Within 3 years, I wrote more than enough research papers, published, and my portfolio was this thick. And all I needed to do to get the tenure was just click it and send it. But then my convent, and they saw all the signs, although they said, hey, I see all the signs in you as a religious woman, but if you're really serious coming into the convent, we suggest that you give up your tenure. And I thought she had no idea what she was asking because, getting a tenure as a college professor, it means a lot. People worked the entire life, a career for that, and asking me to give that up. And so that was a huge, daunting task. And that was actually the first mission that the convent gave me. So I really suffered a lot. Should I keep tenure or get the tenure first and then enter the convent just in case it doesn't work out, I can come back and become a college professor again, or just really burn my bridge, which I never do. But again, I'm going to talk about 3 evangelical vows for the nuns to commit themselves to. But obedience to the will of God, and they've exercised it through the obedience to the will of the superiors. So if I was, being willful, and if I kept my tenure, that means I was going to start my religious life on disobedience. I had to think about that. To make a long story short, yes, foolishly, I gave up my tenure. Yeah, I remember the moment, this thick portfolio that I have made. I just put that in a large trash can, dumped it there. I cried so much that night. But I made it. I made that sacrifice to enter the convent, to say yes to the, God's calling. And selling all my possessions. I couldn't bring my car. I had to sell it. I couldn't bring anything else. But so I had to sell all my possessions, my teapot collections. I'm a tea lover, so I had to sell all my possessions before I entered the convent. And I used to have very long hair, like that, and I chopped it off and donated it to the children's hospital, and saying goodbye to my friends was so hard, but I had to do that. And also I had a farewell trip with my mom to Europe right before I went to the convent, because once I entered this convent, it's cloistered convent, which means once you are in, you never come out. They let you go home once. That's right before your parents' death, to keep their deathbed. So they allow you to go to your parents only once, right before, they go to heaven. So it was really hard for my mom to accept it, but I gave my family like 3 years to prepare themselves, for this discernment. Anyway, so also saying yes to the Jesus calling me to become, the nun, another word, bride of Christ, was giving up playing the piano and also giving up martial arts. I was so active. I was quite an athlete. I was gymnast when I was younger. I was representative of Seoul City. And Taekwondo and Komdo, I'm second degree black belt holder in both martial arts. So okay, you don't believe me. So here's the proof there. That's me practicing board breaking. I was in demo team, so when fundraising events going on, I always, do the demonstration. Yeah, I was like 32 years old this time. My gymnastics background allowed me to do that, actually. Okay, next one. Also, the Komdo. This is Komdo competition held in Atlanta, Georgia. That's me. It's a real sword. It's really sharp. I really enjoyed martial arts. And if you have any chance, you do learn martial arts. It's great. All right. I'm going to keep it short. So finally, I entered a convent in fall of 2016. And who loves pink? Can you tell? I love pink. My pink suitcase there. All my possessions were inside that little bitty hand carrier. Probably a few nightgowns and Bible and rosary, stuff like that. Okay, that's the gate of the Visitation Monastery in Mobile, Alabama. And let me give you a little virtual tour to the Visitation Monastery. So once you're in, it was founded in 1832, and I did a math for you. Yes, it is 192 years old convent. So it is a historic site. So the funny thing is, to even nail something on the wall, we have to get a state office permission. So. And this is visitors area. When visitors come, that's where we greet them. But when close family comes, then we bring them to a different parlor. So we can be more intimate with our, families visiting us. So this order emphasizes the contemplative life of prayer, meditation, prayer, and humility and gentleness. Because I love those core values that this order has. And this Visitation Monastery was established by Saint Francis de Sales, who was Archbishop, and Saint Jane Francis de Chantal in 1610 in France. And nuns adhere to papal enclosure, which means cloistered life. Actually, sorry, I made a note myself, in which nuns live in strict seclusion under the governance and rules established by the Pope. That's what it means. And there's a key characteristics of papal enclosure here, like restrict access, means nuns, they live separation from the outside world. So once you're in, you cannot really come out. There are graveyards inside the convent, the backyards as well. It's a really large place, but restricted access. You cannot just go and see them. And in contemplation, nuns dedicated their lives to the prayers, meditations, and spiritual exercises. And vows and commitment. I'm going to talk about 3 evangelical vows in more depth later, but basically it's holy poverty, chastity, and obedience. And the governance by the Vatican, which I explained earlier. And so many people asked me, Helen, God gave you so many talents. Why do you want to just bury them, in a cloistered convent? And I always told them the story, the Gospel of Luke. the story of Martha and Mary. I know that one of the guest speakers or before, they talked about this story, but just refresh your memory. And Jesus visited the house of two sisters, Martha and Mary. And Martha was so busy cooking and serving the guest. And Mary just sat at the feet of the Jesus, just listen to him and admire him. And Martha is so busy with all this important job to cooking and serving, and she just had it. It's like, Jesus, would you tell Mary to help me? And because in the eyes of Martha, Mary was just doing nothing. She should be helping her, but she wasn't. But what did Jesus say? Say, Martha, Mary had chosen the better part, which will not be taken from her. That's what he said. So what does that mean? To me, Mary symbolized the cloistered, contemplative nun, whose life is centered on prayer and meditation and the spiritual closeness to God. And Martha represents lay person, which I used to be, and now I am again. They are God's hands and feet, serving, loving God's people. But this story reminds us the importance of spiritual connection and giving all our attention to God's presence. So I used to be Martha, and Jesus was calling me, inviting me to take the role of Mary now. Of course I said yes. I wanted to take that better part, what's written in the Bible. So that's what I told them. Jesus needs Mary too. That was my answer. Okay, so continue on with the tour. That's chapel, but still that's outside the convent area because regular parishioners come in and do more. And that's where the priests give homily. And behind the glass window, that's where, I used to be, the nuns are. And so we are divided within the same chapel by these glass windows. And this is called tabernacle. During the Mass, after priest blesses the little host, little bread, it becomes the Holy Communion, the Eucharist, the body of Christ, which is we do it in the remembrance of Jesus' death and during his Last Supper. So it's tabernacle where the body of Christ is kept. And this cloistered convent, so we live in silence. The only time we opened our mouth was when we were praying. Isn't it wonderful? I thought that was wonderful. So this is a kneeler. So when we meditate in the morning or throughout the day, that's where we kneel and we pray. When our knees get really tired, and we can sit on the chair and pray. Okay, so you may wonder, what's a daily schedule in the convent? It's pretty busy. So we wake up around 4:30 a.m. and putting habits, it's a lot of work. There's no zipper in the habits, so everything is like pinned. So there are no mirrors in the convent. So you gotta help each other, really seriously. No mirrors, because we're supposed to work on the inner beauty of ourselves, how our heart is viewed in the eyes of Jesus. So we really worked hard on the beauty in our inner soul. And then an hour later, meditation. I really, really love this 1 hour meditation until 6 a.m. And then you can meditate, you can do prayer, where you can read Bibles or any spiritual reading and contemplate on it. And at 6:30, there's Divine Office. Divine Office is a Catholic religious, like priests and nuns. Every 3 hours, they give this special prayer. So there are like 4 books in one set. So throughout the year, and there are 24 hours a day. So we do Divine Office 8 times a day, every 3 hours. But this order is a little bit like gentle practice is also exercised. So we don't really wake up in the middle of the night to do the Divine Office. But some Catholic orders, they do that still. But anyway, Divine Office. And 7 a.m., the highlight of the day, the Mass. So priest comes and give homily, and we have the Eucharist. And then after Mass, there's breakfast. And you see that bowl is holy water. So wherever we go in the convent, there's holy water. Even inside my cell, my little room, there was holy water. So you dip your finger and make sign of the cross wherever you go. Holy water everywhere. And after that, the divine office, after morning divine office, so prayer. And then there's some 9 a.m. work. We are given some chores. I mean, this contemplative cloistered convent, the only chores that we are given is cooking and cleaning. So there was a huge transition in my life from professor, and when I entered a convent, I was cleaning the bathroom and washing the dishes every day. And then we call lunch dinner. It's a big meal. So 11 a.m. dinner, and that is how we set our table. A glass for the water, and that teacup for tea or coffee, and one plate there. And that's how we set our tables every day. And there's a prayer book there, the grace before meal, about like 5 minutes long. I think we said about 3 Our Fathers in the middle. Anyway, and after lunch, we clean up, and there's a recreation time. So not many nuns exercise there, but I played badminton with one of the novice nuns. I was postulant at the time. Okay, and then 12:30 p.m., another afternoon divine office prayer. And there's a repose. Repose means you take a nap. I mean, you woke up 4:30 a.m. You need a little rest in the middle. But it's only 40 minutes long. I mean, it took me 20 minutes to get out of the habit. So you take another 30 minutes or 20 minutes to put on the habit without the mirror. So I just sit or just lay down on my bed and just rested a little bit, and then went back to the chapel later. So it's not really like nap time for me. But anyway, we have about 40 minutes of repose. And then 3 p.m., we go down to the chapel and do some spiritual reading, which is followed by rosary prayer. And after that, we have some community time. And people send their prayer requests from all over the world. So we read those prayer requests and we pray for them. And they do. And this order was also retreat house. So all kinds of church retreats. They do that here. So. And 5 p.m. evening divine office, another divine office. And we have some mental prayer after that. See, it's contemplative life. And some free time. But free time, I know one of the sisters asked me to play in the yard, like a Tarzan. But usually I was so busy. I remember I was so busy doing my laundry during that time. So it's the only time I can wash my clothes and and 6 p.m. supper. And once I entered a convent, I couldn't take pictures. I did not have any phone with me, so all these pictures were taken when I was still a retreatant there. So that's why we don't see nuns eating there. And of course, it's cloistered convent. I'm not allowed to take pictures of nuns unless it is their backside, or unless it was something on the calendar. It was kind of published, and we sell the calendars. Unless it was those pictures. All right, and some 6:30, we have whole group recreation. We were playing some game there that night, and I don't remember what game that was. I was chosen to be this silly somebody, and it was fun game. And again, the nighttime divine office, but it's not nighttime prayer yet. So another divine office, and then nighttime prayer. And we go to bed around 10 p.m. after shower and lights out. So one bathroom is used by like 3 to 4 nuns. And so I remember, I still do practice that. After shower, I made sure that with a squeaky and a towel, I dried every single drop of water. So for the sake of next nun who was going to use the shower room. So now, until this day, I still practice. It became my habit. So after shower, I completely dry and clean up my bathroom. Although I'm the only one to use my bathroom at home, but that's one of the habits that just stuck with me. And I told you that nuns make 3 evangelical vows, the holy poverty. That's why I had to sell all my possessions before I entered the convent. And there's a paper towel incident. One morning, I spilled my breakfast. It's on the floor. I was so scared because what if somebody, slip and fall and get hurt? So I looked around and I saw there little bitty paper towel left, maybe like 4 sheets there. So I hurried and took it and rolled it out and was wiping it. When I was taking out, reaching out and rolling it out, the paper towel, I heard this gasp from the nuns around me. Actually, as a newbie there, as a novice, I didn't know I was supposed to use a rag, the dirty cloth to wipe that. I had no idea. And when I was outside, paper towel for that kind of incidents was the only thing I used. So I ended up using the only 4 sheets, but entire paper towel. So later, I remember I was mortified by that. But the entire community received a lecture on holy poverty, thanks to my, not so, frugal act. I still remember that. And chastity. So you keep your mind, body, and spirit pure. No marriage. No romance, chastity. And there's a story during the winter time when we were decorating our convent with the hollies and Christmas decoration. One of the nuns, there's an American tradition under the holly. You're supposed to kiss, and if you kiss somebody you love, that your love will come true. That kind of tradition. Have you heard? Anyway, so the nun was decorating the holly on the over there, and she said, "What's the use of having holly here? The only thing I kiss around is the floor." Traditionally in a convent, when you make a mistake, do something wrong, you used to kneel and kiss the floor. They don't practice that anymore after Vatican II Reformation, but used to. The older nuns, they used to kiss the floor when they did something wrong. But anyway, so that was the convent joke, but not so funny. 3, obedience. So they practice the obedience to obedience to the will of God by obeying the will of the superior. So whatever your superior, Reverend Mother, tells me to do, I got to do it. So you leave your own will at the door when you enter the convent. But there is a story to it. I had a most defined moment, disobedient moment in the convent. That's when I became novice from postulant. They made me a new habit. I finally received the religious habit. And so we have seamstress nun. So I went to the seamstress nun's office to measure and all that. But I had one request, to make my hem long enough to cover my ankle, because I saw that the habits was becoming shorter and shorter for the purpose of convenience, because when you walk up the stairs, you don't want to step on your hem. And so I got permission from Reverend Mother. I asked her, is it okay to keep my hem around my ankle? And she said, okay. But the seamstress sister said no. So I repeated what Reverend Mother said, and she said no. So I tried to reason with her. Sister, I know you worried about that also. Yeah, I hear you what you're saying, and you don't want us to trip over our hem. It's not convenient. But Reverend Mother always told us convenience is not virtue. So I tried to reason with her, but she said no. So finally I said, sister, if you have a problem with that, you go talk to the Reverend Mother. As I said that. And that was my most disobedient moment. And she really did, and came back with even looking really, really furious, because Reverend Mother told her, make my hem longer. That was the moment. Anyway, so I know, leaving my comment, you may wonder, okay, why are you here? Sometimes that's my question to why am I here? I told you, this goes back to my mom, the Korean tiger mom. I mean, while I was, living my life in the convent, she was devising a plan to get her daughter out of the convent. I had no idea. So one day she showed up in the convent door with one hand, one-way airplane ticket. to go back to Korea. And she asked me, let's go back to Korea. I cannot live my life without you. And she also said, like, I don't know how to sugarcoat something that was very traumatic to me, but I'll just say as it is. She also brought movers, because I brought my baby grand piano, the piano Helen on Inseparables. I always had baby grand piano with me. So movers shipped my baby grand piano, all my stuff in myself back to Korea. And my mom was at the door, like with the one-way airplane tickets. And I couldn't understand why. I mean, I did not want to leave the convent. I was happy there. And my convent did not want me to leave. So, like, you know, my mom, who couldn't really accept the reality, although I made this decision taking 3 years, and as a professional adult, I made this decision. I was following God's will, but she had a problem with it. So I was wondering, is it a test? You know, it's like, you want to become a nun, then you got to give up your mom, or you choose your mom, then you got to give up being a nun. I mean, is it a test, or is it some kind of God's unfathomable divine plan that I had no idea? You know, and then I prayed a lot during the time. My sisters prayed for me a lot, prayed for my mother a lot. But in John 20:18, Jesus speaks to Peter. Very truly, I tell you, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go. And that really, you know, spoke to me when I was praying. And, you know, my mother coming to convent to drag me out of the convent, literally, I really felt like a girl in front of tsunami. Like, I couldn't stop her. My convent couldn't stop her. It's mystery, really. So, but that happened, sadly. So I was out, you know. So what John, that gospel means, you know, and also what God has taught me is one, surrender and trust. Following God means you completely surrender your will to the will of God. Although at the time, I had no idea where His will was leading me to, the uncertainty. But I had to completely trust Him and just do it. And then number two, the cost of discipleship, sacrifice. You know, as your faith mature, and I learned that loving God also means like a sacrifice. Like I had to say yes to the calling, religious calling. I had to give up my tenure, my professor position, all my possessions, my friends. I made a sacrifice to become the bride of Christ. So the only pearl in my hands that I had was the identity, you know, the bride of Christ. That was the only thing that I had left. And God was asking me to even give that up, to become complete nothing. I mean, fathom that, you know? How would you fathom that? So it was a daunting challenge for me. I had no idea, but I made a sacrifice. And, you know, luckily I had a role model who did that, Jesus. You know, at the Mount of Gethsemane, He was shedding blood, you know, I mean, the sweat of blood, because he knew what God was asking Him to sacrifice Himself, be nailed to the cross, but although He was scared, but He did it, He followed Father's will. So I followed Jesus, you know, example. Like it was like a spiritual bungee jump. I made this spiritual bungee jump first, you know, one time when I entered the convent, and I had to make the second spiritual bungee jump when I had to come out of the convent. So after I came out of the convent, I was not a nun, not a professor anymore, and I was in Seoul, Korea. You know, like, who am I? Where am I? The cultural shock. I remember right after the convent, my mom took me to the hotel. We stayed there for a few days, and then we flew to Korea. And in the restaurant, I remember all the noise. that was going on, and it really hurt my ears. And when my mom accidentally dropped her fork on her plate, the clanging sound shocked me. I was crying in the restaurant, and my mom couldn't understand me why I was crying. I mean, I lived in silence for over a year. I mean, going back and forth for 3 years, that's totally 4 years in the convent. But that intense year in 1 year in convent in silence, the old hustle and bustle, the noises in the world, it's too much for me to bear. If one of you have a really sensitive ears, you're not alone. I'm right there with you. But this is what I learned. Before God fills your hands with his gifts, he empties them first. So when something bad happens to you in your life, don't think of it as, did I do something wrong? Or, what did I do to deserve this? Don't think like that. Maybe God's gifts, huge grace is waiting for you. He's just trying to empty your hands so that he can give you even bigger gifts on your hands. Think of it that way. Everything is God's gift if you think it that way. So see, SFS, you are God's gifts to me, and my colleagues, God's gifts to me. And we need to take more pictures, actually. I was looking for our colleague pictures. Since Calvin and we taught humanities together a few years ago, I had pictures and my team. So SFS, God's gift. And also, after convent, I was so ugly and so fat. I needed to do something really. My health was so not so good. So I started, when I came back to Korea, I was shocked by how. Okay, you know what? I gotta stop now because it's 12:40. I gotta let you go. I knew I wouldn't be able to fit. But anyway, everything is God's gift. I became the first runner-up, and I had a lot of TV appearances thanks to that. After that, and of course my family. So everything is God's gift. So that's the end. Thank you. Make sure you give me your paper if you're in my class. Thank you.